Hello again. This short video is on the topic of why Seattle? Why should Seattle lead across all these dimensions and laws and transformations, planetary transformations? Um, because, and this is something I learned from Steve Ballmer, of all people. Um, he came up with the idea of bundling together various different software packages into Microsoft Office. It started with the first four and that iconic four color puzzle of the four pieces. And it was absolutely brilliant from a marketing standpoint. We're doing the same thing here instead of a bundle called Office, it's a bundle called Polycrisis, right? Um, an infinitely bigger bundle. Um, So one city is going to take it all. I don't see a single other city even in the running, even in, even applying to be in the running, right? Or even thinking about being in the running. We talk more about the city strategy in a subsequent video, but back to Seattle, okay? By unveiling the polycrisis to the world and its solutions. You see, that's the real bundle. It's the polycrisis plus solutions. All right. Because here's the thing, even though this is centered in Seattle, we're drawing on the collective human intelligence of anyone and everyone who taps in and, chooses to be a part of this. Because most of our meetings will be on Zoom. Yes, we'll have in-person meetings, and thankfully, we've got a great cafe culture. So this is going to drive lots of people to the cafes who wouldn't normally go to the cafes, which yet again becomes part of Hungerless in Seattle, but that's uh, not within the scope of this short video. Um, Basically, Seattle, we are such a trend-setting city. We've set trends in, you know, aerospace, jet travel. People now regularly just zip around the world all over the place because of hyper efficient, reliable, and safe, uh, passenger jet travel pioneered by Boeing. We've pioneered software in uh, some categories I just mentioned. Um, E-commerce with Amazon. Uh, you know, Not just food service, but creating a whole new category of space, a third space. Starbucks pioneered that. Um, Love them or hate them, right? Love them or hate them across the board. I'm just saying we are a trend-setting city, a trend-setting metropolis, better said. And because we can, we must. Is it going to be uncomfortable? Sure, right? But we're going to make it as comfortable as possible and as cost effective as possible. In fact, in the video on Hungerless in Seattle, I started to talk about the economics of this, but the donations are going to be such that I can't see how Seattle itself as a city can be anything but cash flow positive with Hungerless in Seattle across the board, factoring in all costs and factoring in that we're going to have a lot of volunteers because people who volunteer at Hungerless in Seattle over a certain threshold of hours or whatnot, get everything covered. Their food, obviously, That's not just a perk, that just becomes a basic human right. Everyone has access. But the fact that we're making it gourmet really pushes it over the top. But the thing is, I mean, if you're going to do it, just do it right. The costs of the inputs aren't going to vary that much. Yeah, it'll have a lot, probably, more oil than a more economical recipe, um, just because gourmet often means rich. But healthy, very healthy oils, all plant-based and, also meeting certain compassionate standards. It's not necessarily enough just to be plant-based. Take the case of palm oil, for example. Anyway, um, for Seattle in particular, because we're pioneering not just this, but the whole bundle of bundles of polycrisis plus polysolution, right? Poly got a crisis, poly want a solution. Um, it's really as simple as that, but doing the entire bundle, right? It's interesting. Prior to bundling the office products, what are now known as the office products, none of them were leaders in their respective categories. Put the bundle together and you created a new category. So we're creating a new category in the mind of the poly crisis and of the poly solution. Um, you know, we as a city, as a metropolis rather, have pioneered so many massively complex systems where you would assume there'd be high probability of failure, but we've, you know, mastered them nonetheless. Right now, we're navigating a minefield of the poly crisis, which is just blowing up in our faces, left, right, and center at a planetary level, if you understand the exponential nature of certain of these crises, if not all of them. Um, Seattle has the capacity to bust out. It's the perfect backdrop. It was the perfect backdrop for Sleepless in Seattle. It's the perfect backdrop for Lawless in Seattle. Um, we're already blowing up on Reddit. Everyone loves it. Um, there's an occasional, you know, um, rare bird who's just way off the charts, who, will flip me off or say something, unkind or whatever. But that's like one in literally many tens of thousands. Um, the vast majority are positive. And so basically everyone's falling in love with Lawless in Seattle, and for good reason. Seattle's the perfect place for it. We've got the chops to take on the poly crisis like nobody else. Anyway, lots of systems to be built, but the first and most important domino, as I, shared on a previous video, um, I think the Hungerless in Seattle video. But anyway, the tiniest of starter dominoes gets the whole thing going. And we've got the chops to orchestrate and engineer that whole exponential, uh, exponentially growing domino series. Seattle may seem like a tiny domino, but my goodness, look at its effect. So make sure you watch that video with the exponential dominoes. Anyway, that's just an opener to, I could go on and on and on. And I challenge anyone to come up with a good reason why Seattle shouldn't be the city to lead with Lawless in Seattle and lead the world. All right. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. See you on the next video.